Christian Donlan, this is Titan Souls. Look at it, isn't it pretty?
It's extremely pretty. It's extremely pretty.
Have you had a chance to play this yet?
I have played it very briefly.
Okay, well, I played it a bunch of times, and I realised that this may give, at some points, a slightly unfair representation of how tricky this game can be.
Right, because you're too good.
I'm about to blast my way through these boss fights.
This boss, I have played this boss, and let me say, it's tricky.
Yeah, so I don't know that they have official names yet that you can see within the game, but I affectionately call this one the gooey blob with the brain in it.
Yeah, that's
the heart
good.
in it even, not brain.
That's good. Love the one you're with, as they say.
And it's, as you can see, every time you hit it, it splits into two. You don't actually want to hit the ones that don't have the heart in it because it becomes more difficult for you. And that's pretty much the main concept of this. But Titan Souls is a game all about boss fights. It's just boss fights, in fact. I made that look stupendously
You did make that look very easy.
simple.
I have played that. It's not easy.
The first time I did that, I think it was somewhere around 10 attempts or something stupid. But yeah, I knew we were recording, so I had to get my A game on. And yeah, it's a game just about boss fights. It breaks it down to that. Your character has one life. If you get hit once, you have to start from the beginning. It does save your progress though, and you have one arrow to use. And it's a simple game, but because of that, the boss fights have to be really interesting to hold your attention.
And because of the arrow thing, when you fire it, you need to then draw it back somehow.
Yes, so which importantly means you have to stand still when you draw it back, and that is often where you'll run into difficulty. Now, this one is the ice cube with the brain in it.
Right.
I haven't really.
Is emerging.
Yes.
Different materials with brains in.
And this one is about, as you once the cube goes over one of these platforms, you can see the flame goes in the middle, and then you can melt the cube and
for massive damage
reveal the. So the bosses actually kind of technically only have 1 HP themselves. Like once you reveal their weakness, yeah, but you have to figure out where its weakness is.
Right.
And this obviously you need to just get rid of the ice cube first. Now, that was very, very risky. I've run into trouble in this boss fight a bunch of times with the second layer of it, because once the brain is revealed, I kind of freak out and think I'm so close to finishing this fight, and then get squashed by it.
You can also, I really like the fact that you can damage the bosses by drawing the arrow back, can't you?
Yes, you can get them under,
them.
and that you feel very cool when you do that.
Yes, they're often also enormously jammy, as we used to say.
Well, stairs are a real issue for me in this, by the way, because you can't roll up them, and I do it every single time. You'll notice throughout the video.
I love the architecture. It's very kind of it's very Shadow of the Colossus, obviously, but it's also very, very Zelda-y and a little bit res. It's got a bit of res in it. Fez. Sorry.
Fez, yeah, sure. It's come a long way as well, because I think this was originally came out by a Ludum Dare game jam.
That's right, yeah.
Is that how you say that? I'm never entirely sure. Ludum Dare.
Yeah, for years I called it Ludlum Dare because
I
was an idiot. And that sounds like a village in like Berkshire or something like that. Oh, I'm just going to Ludlum.
That was Laser Eye Cube.
You're making this look terribly.
I know.
You're giving a completely
Thankfully, the fourth boss in this, I absolutely flake on. So it's fine. It does kind of balance out in the end. So the bosses you're seeing at the moment are the ones that a demo's just gone live this week at some point on Steam, and I believe it's these 4 bosses.
Right.
It's not presented in exactly the same way. I think this is how the final game will look, whereas the demo is presented in a slightly different fashion. But yeah, you can play this yourself right now.
This guy was in the original Ludum Dare game.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it looked a lot different there. They've come a long way in terms of the visuals.
It had kind of a Game Boy color palette, didn't it? It still kind of has that, but it's got a bit more. It's got that hot pink that everyone loves.
Yeah, which quite clearly for this one show where the weakness is. But I still don't know how to do this boss fight properly because you may notice the smashy statue man has 2 fists. And I'm never entirely sure which one he's going to try and hit you with next.
There must be some form of tell going. It's very Zelda. Like the bosses, a lot of them. Like the first boss we saw, I'm sure that mechanic has been in a Zelda or one very like it. And obviously Zelda has put you against bosses who are just kind of floating hands.
Sure.
Before. So there is this. Shadow of Colossus is the thing which everyone name checks, but the Zelda gene is very strong.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And obviously, a lot of people talk about the Souls series because Titan Souls has that in its name.
Oh, yeah,
I'm looking forward to Titanborn, by the way. That'll be the interesting sequel.
Or Blood Souls.
Blood Souls.
Kind of combine everything.
It's probably better. Yeah, this boss fight's so tricky. I know what I need to do, but you have to be able to stand still to fire the arrow, and I never seem to know when you're supposed to do that.
Very panicky. It's one of those games which is so beautiful that you think it's going to be serene, and it's not.
So, you know in Green Street, when Elijah Wood
I do not know. I want you to keep going, but I just want you to know I do not know in Green Street.
Is all like, I'm not very good at fighting, and then he gets into a fight and someone hits him and he's like, oh, actually I'm not made of glass and it's fine, maybe I can fight people. I'm the other way around. The moment I was absolutely great in this, up until the moment in which I died, and then because I knew I could die, I lost all my confidence.
Is this why you were cut from Green Street?
And I never made it. It was me and Elijah Wood, and he just put me to it.
Ross Kemp must be in Green Street.
He isn't, unfortunately. He'd be great in it.
I won't.
And there we are, we got it.
You got him.
And you can see how I ran off after that. I didn't think that I managed it.
Elijah would be proud.
We've all learned valuable lessons. But yeah, Titan Souls, although I made those first 3 boss fights look a little bit simple, this is an incredibly fun game, an incredibly satisfying game because of it's all about figuring out the systems of the bosses. It's not necessarily tremendously difficult once you figure that out, but the process of doing that is the interesting bit.
And it has lots of ways to trip yourself up. Like, I love the thing you said about with the blob boss. You want to avoid the other blobs because they just make it harder.
Yes, but you don't. Well, the first time you do it, you'll just be shooting anything you can, and that's there's a really great process.
There's sort of 30 years of video game readability in there as well. Like, you know to aim for the heart, you know to aim for the pink thing. It kind of builds on things that we have learned over the years.
Sure, but I think it is also, forcing itself to do interesting stuff because it's almost like playing a demake where it's taken itself to the real core concepts of what boss fights are, and it's had to span that across what will be an entire game with 20 plus bosses or whatever.
Yeah, it's working without a net. One hit point and 1 arrow, that is pretty much going it.
Anyway, as you just saw there, the build we've got does go on a little bit further than just those first 4 bosses. So we're going to be returning to this in the Eurogamer show on Friday with a never-before-seen boss that I'm not actually any good at. So that's a nice little teaser.
So a more accurate representation.
A much more accurate representation, and one that you should maybe have a look at.
And we'll be joined by Elijah Wood.
What's harder is playing and talking at the same time.
It's not true. All right, cool. Thank you for that.
Okay, there we go. I got the final kill there. Eliminated the last enemy. Here we go. There's my kill cam. There's my magazine floating in midair. And there he goes. He's dead. Anyway, each round you get to switch around from defenders to attackers. I'm going to be Sledge. Sledge has got a massive sledgehammer.